So now I've returned to showing you the opened aortic root, because what I want to discuss with you now is the huge problems we have in defining the valvar annulus. At the same time, as we look at the root, you can note in this particular heart the discrepancy in size between the valvar sinuses. You see that this leaflet, which is guarding the non-adjacent valvar sinus, is guarding an appreciably shorter component of the circumference of the root, marked by the sinutubular junction, than is this leaflet that is guarding the sinus giving rise to the right coronary artery. And you see that in this particular heart we have removed the semilunar hinge of the right coronary aortic leaflet. And I've done that because I want to emphasize to you how the semilunar hinges of the valvar leaflets cross the anatomic ventriculo-arterial junction. Now this particular heart is open particularly well to show us the anatomic ventriculo-arterial junction. Here is the origin of the left coronary artery, the main stem of the left coronary artery, from the left coronary aortic sinus. And here you can see how that left coronary aortic sinus is supported by the musculature of the ventricular wall. And at the particular level in which we have cut across the left coronary aortic leaflet, you see that the leaflet is coincident with the anatomic ventriculo-arterial junction that is marked here by the epicardial fat. But then if we trace the line of the anatomic ventriculo-arterial junction, where the musculature of the ventricular wall gives rise to the fibrocollagenous walls of the valvar sinuses, we see very nicely that the semilunar hinge crosses the anatomic ventriculo-arterial junction as it extends up to be attached at the sinutubular junction. So let's concentrate in particular on the semilunar hinge of this right coronary aortic leaflet. So at this end, it's attached at the sinutubular junction. But now, as we follow it down, at this point it crosses the anatomic ventriculo-arterial junction. And now beautifully you see how this semilunar hinge line, attached here to the musculature of the ventricular wall, has incorporated a small crescent of ventricular myocardium at the base of the right coronary aortic sinus. And then, as we follow up the semilunar hinge again to the sinutubular junction, and we see its junction with the tip of the rightward end of the non-adjacent leaflet, we see beautifully how a crescent, or rather a triangle of fibrous tissue has been incorporated as a distal extension of the left ventricular outflow tract. So here we have the paradox whereby muscle is incorporated at the valvar sinuses, but at the attachment of the leaflets at the sinutubular junction, we see fibrous triangles incorporated as the extensions of the ventricular outflow tract. And it is these semilunar hinges that give us the problems in defining the annulus. Because oftentimes the surgeons will define these semilunar hinges as their annulus, whereas the echocardiographer will define the virtual plane produced by the proximal attachments of each of these hinges as the echocardiographic annulus. And of course, the echocardiographic annulus is then a virtual plane that in reality is no more than the circumference of the entrance to the aortic root.